Hi everyone, my name is Yulia Muchnik-Rizanov. Today I'm going to tell you about this study that was co-authored with Dina Cybulski, the head of biology education track in the Technion. Well, reflecting on various events and our own experiences is an integral part of who we are, human beings. In teacher education, producing reflective reports has become a commonplace, and the value of this educational tool has been widely established. But how much can we understand from these reflective reports submitted by our students? How can we utilize this tool to its maximal potential? So, in order to make one more step towards understanding student-teacher's reflective report, we suggest systemic functional linguistics-based methodology that can be implemented in educational research. Several words about systemic functional linguistics. This approach was suggested by Michael Holliday in 1978. Michael Holliday views language as a system of choices that we as users have to make in order to convey certain meanings and function in social context. So, this study aims to understand processes related to the development of student-teacher's professional identity by using a systemic functional linguistics-based methodology to analyze the written reflections of 33 student-teachers. Participants of this study were enrolled in the science teaching tracks of 2 teaching colleges in the country and reflected on their recent exposure to project-based learning. While being inspired by Holiday and Lesion, we analyzed 3 linguistic markers for the current study. First, we analyzed personal references that form group or self-focused narratives. Secondly, we analyzed verbal phrases that form future-oriented narratives. And 3, we analyzed linguistic intensification that formed emotionally colored narratives. While talking about our first linguistic marker, we analyzed the personal pronouns of the first and second person, meaning I and we, where I was associated with self-focused narrative and we was associated with group-focused narrative. As for our second linguistic marker, we coded the reflective reports for all the instances of future projected narrative relying on formal characteristics of tenses and going beyond them. For the third linguistic markers, we coded the reflective narratives for all the instances of so-called linguistic intensification. 2 major types of linguistic intensification are known. First of all, adverbial phrases such as indeed, really, much, and so on, and lexical reiteration, meaning repeating the same lexical items to produce a certain emotional effect. Now let's look at our findings. As you can see, student-teachers evolved from group-focused narrative to self-focused narrative. It should be noted that initial stages of PBL process, when more group-focused was produced, were also associated with more hardships and challenges. Towards the end of the PBL process, students became more autonomous and confident, and then more self-focused narrative was produced. As for the future-oriented narratives, our findings were as follows. First of all, most of the future-oriented narratives produced by student-teachers were described as positive. In addition, student-teachers became even more optimistic towards the end of the academic year. If we look at the examples, we can see positive future-oriented narrative. I want to continue to learn and develop so that I can become an excellent teacher, versus negative future-oriented narrative. I am afraid that I won't manage with the students in terms of classroom discipline, or that I won't succeed in becoming a teacher who is meaningful in the lives of our students. And finally, regarding linguistic intensification, our findings were as follows. First of all, it was found that all the students used the means of linguistic intensification to create emotionally colored narrative. Moreover, most of this emotionally colored narrative was described as positive rather than negative. And to add to this picture, we say that more emotionally colored narrative described as positive was produced towards the end of the academic year. Let's look at the examples. Working on the project constituted a very significant part of the deep understanding about this fascinating profession, and that is why it created such a broad perspective for me. As you can see, linguistic intensification is realized here through two adverbial phrases, very and such. As for the second example, we can see linguistic intensification realized through lexical reiteration, meaning repeating the same verb. I felt that an atmosphere in the class had changed and I felt much better. Similarly, we can see examples of negative emotionally colored narrative. Before I began studying in the program, I had lots of concerns, such as how I would manage to stand in front of a class full of students. In this case, linguistic intensification was realized through an adverbial phrase, lots of. If we look at this example, we can see that the same verb, worried, was repeated. I was terribly worried that I would fall, and I worried that I wouldn't be able to cope with an entire class of students and that I wouldn't manage to convey the lessons clearly. Well, let's summarize. The findings demonstrate that the suggested methodology enables the identification of messages conveyed implicitly throughout the reflective reports and thereby affords a better understanding of the student-teacher's concerns, expectations, and hopes during the process of their professional identity development as they study to become teachers. By implementing the suggested methodology, we can follow the identity work of our students and see them becoming better professionals. That's all for now, and thank you very much for watching us.